Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it. Coach, speaking of rules, what rule would you like to see changed in high school basketball and why?
Well, we're already talking about it. It's the only sport, in my opinion, that I can think of. I mean, and someone would probably correct us on this, where a guy gets disqualified for committing too many fouls or too many errors.
Coach, the Cowboys line, if that was the case, we would have no one.
Yes.
No one. If they got individual fouls for every holding or false start.
Yes, if there was and so
yeah.
I don't think people come to a game, with the thought of I want to see some people foul out. I think they want to see people play.
Yeah.
So, there's free throws awarded. I mean, especially usually when a guy does foul out, typically speaking, the other team's in the bonus. So even if it's not a shooting foul. So the team's getting penalized for the foul. I don't see why we disqualify players from playing. And we do it a lot of times, as we just talked about, even before they foul out, we're having to sit them because they're in foul trouble.
Yep.
And I think it's way too big of an impact on the game. And officiating is a hard job, but I would say we make it harder because of that fifth foul rule. I mean, and we all know this. There are officials, some of them that will be aware that a good player is in foul trouble and that he might have to commit murder to get his fifth one. Well, that's not necessarily fair to the team he's playing against.
Yep.
Or an official is unaware and, he's picked up his last two fouls on things that have happened 80 times throughout the game that haven't been called. So you're putting a whole lot of responsibility and maybe pressure on those officials too, because there's a good player that may just be ousted from the game. So, I mean, I think I don't think that I've said that to other coaches and they've said, well, I mean, so you just have guys just like go out and just hammer people constantly.
See, that's what I don't like. If they go there, then I don't really understand their thought process, because
I don't either.
If all fouls are errors, just because you can't foul out, like hypothetically, you could have infinity fouls. Well, that's not going to happen because your team's going to lose and you're going to be out anyway because you can't stop fouling. Your coach is going to pull you off the floor because you're not good enough to play without fouling.
And the other team shooting 50 free throws, you're going to lose anyway.
The idea that the games are going to take 5 hours no, that's not how it's going to work. But to your point, I've thought about this a lot, Coach. I think we should have either a higher foul limit or just forget that whole thing. Keep the one with the team fouls, keep them going, and even move them up if you'd like. Move them up to 1-1 at 5. And then I would love for the fouls to be cleared at every quarter, but that's just another thing. But then I think if the officials can, and it doesn't take to me a lot, especially at the higher levels like you are, meet with your crew. Know the teams that are playing and take more of an NBA style approach, which is, guys, just remember, this isn't about us. This is about the kids. And this is entertainment. It's a sport. It's supposed to be fun to watch. We're not going to take control of this thing. That number 12 on that team, he's the man. Like, he's their guy. I'm not saying you don't baby him. And if it's just blatant, but there's nothing wrong with officials knowing who those major stakeholders are on each team.
I totally agree, because then they don't ticky-tack that. If it's an obvious foul, they call it. But and I know every coach has had that. I mean, you get to know some of the officials, and and they're good. Some of them you really like, you have good rapport with. And this has happened throughout the years where we've had a kid, where I got upset in a game with one of them that I knew well for a foul that they call on a good player, and they'll say, well, send me that clip. So I do. Well, here's what I would say is, if you have to take it to slow-mo, frame by frame, to try to figure out if that was a foul.
And I think it's there.
Probably shouldn't have been called.
Yeah, good point.
It's probably just something that just happens if we went out and played pickup. Just happens all the time. So that, I think some of the frustration with that would be eliminated if guys weren't having to sit players or have them disqualified. I think it would really, when we talk about making things better between coaches and officials, I mean, I think that could go a long ways.
Yeah,
Right.
I like that, but I've realized sometimes then just that I've never been an official before, and so I don't really know what it's like to be in their shoes. But I realize the disconnect sometimes because, to your point, I think of the moments when my best player gets his fourth foul and it's something really small, and I bring that guy over and I say, "You just gave my best player's fourth foul on that," and they'll look at me like they don't care at all. Like it's not something. To me, it just makes sense that everybody would be all on the same page with this for the other team as well. But then I'm confronted with the fact that no, that's not the thought process right now.
So yes, that would be a rule change, I
I
guess.
like that. Coach, last question before we go to the speed round, because it's almost been 2 hours and I want to let you eat dinner.
I'm great.
Off season, we're in the spring right now. What are some expectations that you have for your players in the off season?
Yes. Well, I don't I don't think players, and this is true to an extent, and it's false to an extent, but I do tell our kids this. I don't think it's 100% right, but you generally don't get better during the season. You showcase how good you are during the season, where the vast majority of your improvement is going to occur in the off season. And so we try to start, and I'm not a big believer in, and maybe I should be, but and I don't necessarily believe in burnout or kids need a break, load management. I'm not into those concepts. And just like I'm not into stretching, but
Coach, I was just talking the other day about burnout's not a real thing. Okay, it's a real thing in the sense of you can get tired of anything. Like I love ice cream, Coach. And if I eat ice cream for 2 weeks straight, that 15th day, I'm probably going to think, golly, do I really want ice cream? And then, Coach, in that moment, I really find out how much I love ice cream or not. Do I push past that feeling and keep going? Or do I just, you know what? And if that's the case, then I don't obviously love ice cream
don't
as
love
much
it.
as I
Yeah.
thought I did. No
Yeah.
such thing, Coach. That's an uncommon statement, though, right there.
So I know, like at whatever point we get beat, in the playoffs, then I mean, the next day or the next, if it's a Friday, I mean, it'd be on Monday, but the next time we can, we're going to meet with them and try to put the season in perspective, and try to make that a positive day. Knowing that some kids are going to be hurting, some are going to be hurting more than others. That's just a fact. But the kids who have really put a lot into it, they're going to still be stinging pretty good from and the realization that we don't have practice today. The season's done. That was so abrupt. And
Yeah.
as a coach, we've all felt that, and it's a kind of a terrible feeling. So we'll take that day off and try to put last season in perspective and start talking about what lies ahead in the future. And then we're going to get them on the court the next day, and we might not work them real hard. We might try to do something a little bit different, but it's still going to be competitive. And I'll probably dial back how much instruction I give, with the point of them having a little bit of fun that first day back. And then soon thereafter, unless we're staring spring break right in the face, like, we're going to get them in the weight room and try to get them in the routine of, during our athletic period every day, it's going to be a practice just like we had during the season. After school, you guys are going to be in the weight room, and we're going to be in there if it's a 5-day week, if there's no holiday or work day or something, then they'll lift 4 out of those 5 days: Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 2 leg days and 2 upper body days. And so most days they go to the weight room right after school. They have their workout. They get in there and do it, and and we stand in there and watch them, or instruct if we need to on technique or what the exercise is. And then they go, that's done about, we get out of school at 4, they're done lifting about 4:45, and we go to the court, and we have different shooting programs and different shooting games that we do. And that's primarily what we're going to do when we, after, at 4:45 every day, is do that. And that's now some days I will put them on teams and we'll play pickup. Everything we do, anytime we play pickup after school or in the summertime, it's always half court. We do no full court pickup game, because we tell them, anytime you're doing something in basketball, we want you doing it, with total focus and lock in. And we don't feel like that 5th period practice and then the weights, that they can go out there and get up and down with the intensity that we would want them to. So we actually have a style of half court basketball that we play that simulates pressing. So if I get a defensive rebound, the closest man to me is going to be on me. I can't dribble it. Everybody else is trying to match up, and they've got to clear a pass outside the 3.
Oh, wow.
It's a make or miss shot. On a made shot, they get it out of the net and somebody's on them, and he's got to chin the ball and pivot, and everybody's trying to match up and make it hard for him to find a pass outside the 3. Once he does, then it's still half court. And I mean, they're on offense, and
that must be pretty fast paced though, playing like that.
Very fast paced. It's very fatiguing. Yeah. So we also play very short games. We played a 5 baskets, and we don't count the 3 as 2. Everything's 1 point, and we played a 5. And so it's a high paced half court game, and we're still working on matching up quick and putting pressure on them. And then, we'll do that, we'll do that once or twice a week and go away from our shooting program. And they enjoy that. And very few times, I mean, maybe 1 out of 10 times do I walk away from it feeling disappointed in their effort, and maybe less than that. It's very rare.
Yeah.
And I'll sit on the side and watch, and I'll do a fight. Like when someone gets a rebound or gets out of the net, I'll give him the 5 count, 1,001. So he's got to try to get that thing cleared in 5 seconds, or it's a turnover. And so, yeah, we call that Olympic style half court. It's something we've just kind of come up with through the years, and we really love it. But they're going to be, and then, we'll tell kids, like, okay, you had some good pickup games. Well, you need to get some shots, like we tell them this ahead of time, every day after you're done playing pickup, like, you need to get some shots. And so we do, I mean, I don't know, we do a lot of things with the number 7, like my shooting drill earlier, was 7 minutes. They've got to, so we'll tell them, partner up, get 77 made threes. Or if I feel like we've played a long time, it's getting late, it's past 6 o'clock, we might tell them, get 33 made threes. And so that's kind of our day. I mean, the kids that love it, and I've been blessed. I mean, besides having good assistant coaches, I've just been blessed with kids that love basketball, and they fall in love with it. If they don't love it, they usually don't stay in our program, for their whole 4 years. But they'll work out hard in the athletic period, which ours is right before lunch. And then they'll be back and they'll lift, and then they're going to be in the gym from, for at least an hour and a half after they've lifted. So they're getting 2.5 hours, of court time each day. And with that said, you'd think we'd be a whole lot better.
Well, or you'd be a lot worse if you weren't doing that.
And so a lot of days are in there, they're doing whatever we prescribe for them on shooting. We've got some different things where we can vary it, but so yeah, and then we'll do it. We'll do it now that we can practice in the summer a little bit. We always did the open gym and the weight room, but now there's that month of June, if we're not at team camp or something, we can kind of mirror what we were doing in the spring.
Yeah.
And that's when I feel like you really see kids get better. Like we've got a bunch of young kids right now, and we don't shoot the ball very well. and yesterday evening, in our open gym, we did some shooting contests where they were competing against each other, and we had some kids really shooting it well that hadn't been, in my opinion. And yesterday, I had to compliment them, and so they can see it already starting to pay off. Them spending that amount of time, things you can't do in the season because you're trying to get ready for the next team. So, so that's kind of, I think that off season's big. I've always loved it from my first day coaching at Lubbock Coronado as an assistant. I fell in love with the off season, the spring, and getting the kids up there in the summertime, and then the fall. So yeah, I like to play golf, but I'm not very good, and I think it's that gym time. I never go play.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I would just rather. I feel guilty if I leave early. So today, I mean, our kids, I've got quite a few kids in track. So I scheduled this podcast today because I knew, today would be a good day to give them off. We've got kids involved in, in a track meet and some other ones going out of town for AAU. So, but Monday through Thursday, we're going to have them up there.
That was my next question: is how much is select ball a big part of what your players do? Is that something that you encourage them to do, or is it kind of completely separate out of your mind?
It's a little, it's not out of my mind, and I do not encourage it. I don't discourage it just because, there's probably enough people that don't like me already. So I don't need to, but here's some things that I do talk to our kids about. I mean, I think it was 2015, could have been 16. The years start running together, but we had a kid that was All-State as a junior and All-State as a senior. So obviously he was a very good player. And coming out of his junior year, he had Division I schools that had noticed him and that, had started recruiting him. And at the end of the spring and summer, as he did kind of the travel circuit and all that, come September, none of those Division I schools were on him. And in trying to figure out what had happened, he told me, he said, Coach, I mean, it's not the same as when I'm playing, for you and with these guys. It's not the same. I don't get the same shots. I don't get as many shots. I'm not handling the ball near as much. A lot of times and he was a really intelligent he just said a lot of times it's just bad basketball.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I look as good or can show what I'm capable of doing. And he was a really good player. He ended up leading North America in scoring in college at a Division II school. So, and so, that I use that as a cautionary tale. Like, it can be as harmful as it can be helpful. Mm-hmm. And he probably would admit too that he probably didn't play as hard or as intense because of who he was playing with, because they didn't. And me and him have talked a lot about that. And then I've had two high Division I guys that started 4 years in the Big 12 that they never played AAU basketball. One of them's dad was a coach, so he was just in the gym all the time. He didn't need, another voice or other voices telling him what to do. He had me, he had his dad who had been a really good player and was now a coach, and he just lived in that gym. And so I don't think it's necessary, but it's a hard sell to tell kids, that Kobe Bryant never played AAU basketball, and y'all are wearing his shoes. So that's a hard sell. But,
yeah.
And I'm sure there's probably some cases where it helps, but I think we always tell our guys, if you're good enough, people are going to find out about you. They're going to know. And we've had enough good ones that. So I do worry about the competing voices, and maybe that some of the things we emphasize are not getting emphasized. And that's probably a lot of coaches that feel that way. At the same token, I mean, we had a guy here in Amarillo who actually was a dad of a couple of my players in the past. and he would coach kids in AAU when they were young. He wouldn't really stay with them all the way, and he was fantastic. And the kids that played for him in elementary and middle school would come to us with a good foundation.
Man, if you find guys like that, hold on to them, because that is, you're pretty fortunate at that younger age.
And so there's some good ones that you would like for him, and he was one. He was fantastic. He doesn't do it anymore. He's busy, and his kids are all grown, but he was fantastic. I mean, I felt like they were getting coached just like they would by a good high school coach, and so I just think it's a mixed bag on that.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.